Welcome to ANN 7 Prime. My name is Cindy Mabi. Thanks again for joining us. And these are the news headlines. SANRAL locks horns with Joburg Mayor Herman Mashaba over free e-toll rise claim. He says Mashaba only playing to the gallery and that municipal officials cannot interfere in e-toll matters. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi intervenes in the row over 36 psychiatric patients' deaths in Gauteng. Health Ombudsman to investigate allegations of negligence that led to the deaths. A row brews over the annual national assessments. Union SATU and COSATU voiced their support for teachers to boycott the controversial test again this year. Angry community members protest against the brutal killing of 18-year-old Cape Town teenager Lakita Moore. Parents appeal for help and justice, and it's become an ANN 7 campaign for Lakita's dignity. And the race for the South African of the Year award begins in earnest. Nominees for the coveted awards are being announced as we speak. The gala opening ceremony is currently underway. The South African National Roads Agency Communications head of Vusimona has come out against New Joburg Mayor Herman Mashaba on his comments around e-tolls. Here's a report.
In his inaugural speech as Johannesburg Mayor, Herman Mashaba said that no motorist will be harassed by JMPD for unpaid e-tolls.
In our city, there will be no cooperation between JMPD and SANRAL on e-tolls. And I have received a commitment from JMPD that there will be no harassment of our motorists about outstanding e-toll payments.
The head of the roads agency hit out at New Johannesburg Mayor, saying that he was new to his job and was possibly just playing to the gallery when he spoke on the e-toll matter.
He's still new in this position, and he probably doesn't understand that this is a function that falls within national competence. We've never had any agreement with JMPD to enforce e-toll collection.
Meanwhile, JMPD management has chosen to distance themselves from the e-toll issue. JMPD and SANRAL have both echoed the same statement, saying that SANRAL does not have an agreement with JMPD to enforce or even check for e-tags. JMPD has refused to comment on camera, saying that they have nothing to say on e-tags as it's a SANRAL issue. SANRAL claims it's an urban myth perpetuated by those with an anti-e-toll agenda. The JMPD is allowed to check for e-toll compliance.
I have registered for e-tolls, but I find it very much disturbing on so many occasions whereby they stop me, they check me if I'm paying or not. And I'm not paying because I cannot sustain my car. I cannot sustain myself as well.
I think maybe when Jacob Zuma is gone, we are going to get the new president who will understand us as the motorist what we need, because of every day we're on the road, and then we calculate the money is very expensive. We have the kid to support, we have the family. I don't support for e-toll.
SANRAL came out strongly against Mashaba's utterances on e-tolls, with many asking if the mayor of Africa's economic hub thoroughly understands his role and the limit of the powers that comes with it. Judith Diacanyo, ANN 7, Johannesburg.
We're joined on the line now by Wayne Duvenage, Outer Chairperson, and of course in studio we're also joined by Howard Dembowski, Chairman of the Justice Project South Africa. Howard, thanks so much for your time. You were saying off air that the clarity should be made that it's not the JMPD that has jurisdiction in Herman Mashaba's words, to harass motorists. It's actually community safety.
Well, absolutely. SANRAL contracted with the Gauteng Department of Community Safety after its contract with the RTMC's National Traffic Police fell foul. For the first period of e-tolling, the National Traffic Police were given the fancy Ford Everest with all the equipment in it, and then there was a ding-dong between the RTMC and SANRAL over the use of those vehicles. SANRAL wasn't happy about the RTMC using them for general law enforcement, and so withdrew that contract from them and signed another one with the Gauteng Department of Community Safety. But as I was saying to you off air, anybody who comes from Joburg and sees a traffic officer of any description anywhere in South Africa, and possibly even in Mozambique and in Zimbabwe, will say JMPD. And the reason for that is they've come to associate traffic officers with the JMPD. We've had lots of complaints from people saying JMPD has set up an e-tolls roadblock. And that's dating back to 2013 that they were saying that. And we kept on saying, but JMPD has no jurisdiction, and the vehicles that you're showing and the officers that you're showing are actually Gauteng Department of Community Safety.
Yeah, let's get Wayne Duvenage. He is the founder of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse. Wayne, thanks so much. I hope you heard the remarks from Howard that the JMPD does not have jurisdiction to ask motorists for e-tags and its community safety, and saying that the remarks by Herman Mashaba do not hold water because people will still be held liable to pay their e-tolls.
Yes, I think that's quite right. The people are mistaking any traffic police out there as JMPD or Ekurhuleni or the Tshwane police. But what exacerbated the problem more was that e-toll caravans used to set up right next to them as a setup for intimidation of the public, and everybody thought, well, this is now an e-toll roadblock. Well, they never were. There's no law that says you have to have an e-tag. And while the government and SANRAL believe there's a law for people to have to pay, well, the people aren't paying, and that's another problem that they're trying to deal with through dispensations and now litigation or summonses and so forth, and that's going to fall foul. So quite right. But I think what you do have is a new political party now that is exercising some of its muscle. And while they're saying, look, we are going to make sure that the JMPD do not harass the public, they never could have in the first place, but they're just making sure that they're rattling sabers and saying to the national government, look, if this was, which is why they haven't got e-tolls, by the way, any tolling in the Western Cape, because you had a defense there, and they're starting to set that defense up here. Because when this becomes potentially, let's say, in the 2019 elections controlled by another party, and even at a higher level, in the national level, this thing is going to be handled very differently. And all that Mashaba is really sending messages out there is that this is, I think, the time for political support on e-tolls at a local level is completely gone, even though he had no jurisdiction anyway.
All right, let's take a call, Lucky, and so where to stay on the line, Wayne. Hello, Lucky, and what's your comment or question?
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So into Sisi, government for these days, I think it's a government for profit. It's no longer service to people.
Why?
Masingabheka kahle nale itholo ikhuphulisa izinto and into asibheke manje nesinkwa sidura kanjani yonke into is going up just because of yona le itholo nepetrol yakhuphuka yonke into, which means there's no longer government service to people. It's a government for profit.
All right, Lucky, thanks so much for your call. That he's also supporting the call that e-tolls have no place in society. We're already overburdened. But Linda from Orange Farm, hello to you.
Yes, hello dear.
Hi.
I just wanted to complain about my car. I've got a Volvo. My car I didn't have an engine, I think, before these e-tolls come in. But I got a letter that I'm owing 8,000.
Ma'am Linda, very briefly, so what is your question or comment?
Yeah, I just want to say this business of these e-tolls, but there's a business to be rich for themselves.
All right, thanks so much, Ma'am Linda. Howard, just in the messaging in itself, while the whole contestation continues between parliamentarians or government, municipalities, including organizations such as OUTA, what do law-abiding citizens read from what the mayor of Johannesburg was saying, that, you know, you don't be concerned, JMPD doesn't have a right to harass you, and yet they then meet up with the community safety police? What then?
Well, I think one needs to define what a law-abiding citizen is. And a law-abiding citizen during the apartheid era was one that supported the Group Areas Act. So let's be quite frank about things. Just because a law exists does not mean that it's just, and it does not mean that it's fair, and it does not mean that the public has been consulted on it. And the backlash that has resulted from e-tolling has resulted due to the fact that democratic processes were actually taken and trampled all over by SANRAL in their public meetings prior to introducing e-tolls. They had 8 participants, 8 people, going and speaking on behalf of a country of more than 50 million people. I mean, this is not participation. That's the first thing. Secondly, I think that national government has realized that e-tolling, although it might have been a great idea in Austria, this is not Austria. Firstly, the lady was complaining about her having 8,000 Rand bill for a Volvo that doesn't have an engine. And that is a problem. And it's a problem that is actually, in a way, it is unique to South Africa. We like to say it's not, but it is. The fact is that we have clone number plates coming out of our ears in South Africa. It's been something that's developed over the last couple of decades, I would say two decades, and that's got nothing to do with new government. It's got everything to do with electronic enforcement.
Okay, Howard, just making that remark that at the end of the day, the billing is also being problematic and perpetuating the frustration that motorists are experiencing. Linda, in this case, her car not having an engine, and yet she sits with a fat bill. What is Outer doing in assisting people like her?
That's why we're going to court. The scheme is unworkable because it's relying on incorrect information, false information, which has found its way into e-notice, as Howard says. Sadly, we do have a society that is rocking the boat and taking shortcuts. And I think that's been exacerbated by all the cameras, the speeding traps that are out there. People are working their way around it. But more so, what's exacerbating this problem is that there seems to be an unenforceability and an unwillingness or an inability of the authorities to grapple with so many of the issues around road traffic infringements, right from unroadworthy vehicles to false licenses, phone number plates. We have a serious problem, which I think, and Howard's got a lot of experience in this, where we've got to get down to with the authorities, with the RTMC, and say the way they're going about it with R2 and the way they're trying to say, well, if I pass the law, then everything's going to come right. You can pass as many laws as you want. Unless you have proper practical enforceability with good administration and systems, these problems are not going to go away. They're going to get worse. And this has been one of the problems for SANRAL. So you see a lady like Linda saying, gee, I don't even have a car on the road. It's got no engine, and I'm getting e-toll bills. She's not alone. There are hundreds. There are thousands.
We'll redirect them. Sorry to interrupt you. And I just want to get back to what SANRAL was saying regarding Herman Mashaba saying that people, or JMPD, they have an agreement that people will not, or motorists will not be harassed. SANRAL then came back saying that he's playing to the gallery and that this is a more populist stance than what it is about governance issues. What's your response?
Well, our response is that politicians will take advantage of all situations. We saw it in the 2014 elections, and we saw the electorate voting accordingly, and politicians are going to make hay while the sun shines. There's no secret that the DA are totally opposed to e-tolls, and they're going to use any opportunity to send that message out. The motorists are happy with statements like that, even though that he is capitalizing on a situation which might not technically be true. He is saying that at a local level, we are not going to support e-tolls and do as much as we can to exacerbate this problem for them. So if SANRAL wants to say, well, that's pandering to the populist thing, I mean, they've been accusing ARTA of that, of JPSA of doing that all along. That's fine. One reality that SANRAL has to understand is that they have serious problems coming, and I believe that Moody's have put a statement out that they're on review for a downgrade. These are the serious issues that they've got themselves into a problem now, and they keep blaming everybody else. They keep calling everybody else populist, when the reality is they need to have an introspective look at why the scheme has failed. They were warned before they launched it not to fail. All these things would happen. They have happened. It's not about being populist. It's about being realist, actually. And SANRAL need to become realists on the e-toll matter. It is collapsed, and they need to now pull the plug because all their dispensations, their threats haven't worked.
All right, but Howard, is this the right way to dispense of the e-tolls, considering that this is a national function and not a municipal function?
Well, the fact is that the only thing that has changed the playing field with respect to e-tolling is the acceptance or non-acceptance of the citizenry. And quite frankly, nothing that politicians can say or do, including the politician Vusi Mona, will have an effect. He talks about Herman Mashaba being opportunistic, but he fails to mention how opportunistic he and his colleagues and bunch of thieves were when a man was prosecuted for license plate fraud, number plate fraud, and they said this was the first e-tolls prosecution. It is the only prosecution that has taken place under e-tolling. And it was masked as e-tolling, but it was prosecution for number plate fraud.
But Howard, was that presented?
So
I mean,
he presented that
yeah,
as this is e-toll prosecution in action.
Yeah.
The fact is that Mr. Mona is a stranger to the truth, and he plays politics all the time. The fact that Herman Mashaba has now come and played this political game of saying that the JMPD won't force people to pay e-tolls, the JMPD never was. However, let's also look into the fact that the EMPD, the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department, is in serious arrears. In fact, it hasn't paid its e-tolls, nor has the JMPD, nor has the Tshwane Metro. So ultimately...
So what you're saying, in a sense, is that Herman Mashaba is just fulfilling the promise, his electioneering manifesto promise, that they will get rid of e-tolls should they be in national government, that at the moment there's very little he can do about it.
Well, there's absolutely nothing that any opposition party can do about e-tolls, which is a national legislation, unless the opposition gets a majority vote in Parliament, and the chances of that happening are practically zero, because if you have a look at our parliamentary structure, it's almost equivalent to a one-party state anyway.
Yeah. Is this the master stroke, though, from the DA, considering that they're now building onto the next elections while the contestation was for the local ones?
As I said to you off air, I'm not a politician. I don't like politicians. The fact is that politicians are like bananas. They're all crooked. They hang around in bunches. They're all yellow, and there's not a straight one among them. The fact is that politicians will do what politicians do to get votes, and that's a fact. But ultimately, it is the will of the people that will win through here. And that will of the people has been very clearly shown that more than 2/3 of the people using these freeways are not paying your e-tolls. What are you going to do? Lock them all up? That's what Vusi Mona was threatening. That's what SANRAL was threatening. That's what Nazir Ali was threatening. They were saying you wouldn't be able to get an Edgar's account because you'd have a criminal record. What they don't understand is if you had a criminal record, you wouldn't be able to get a job, so you wouldn't get your Edgar's account anyway.
Yeah, but again, these contradictions and misrepresentation, Wayne, the message to the motorists, I mean, on one side, as Howard was saying, that there had been many threats posed to motorists if they do not comply with the e-tolls. On the other side, we're hearing politicians, most recently with Herman Mashaba, almost encouraging a civil revolt or a standoff not to participate in this particular process.
They have all along. I mean, even John Moody, which is at the regional level or the provincial level, they've said, yes, they don't agree with e-tolls. And now, I mean, the new DA local government has inherited unpaid e-toll bills by the previous political parties that were running the provinces. So there's a bit of forked tongue there, where the ANC says everybody should pay, and yet their own parties and their own metros and run by their own parties haven't been paying in the past. So this is just rhetoric. I mean, all the trends are showing that the 2019 elections are going to be quite interesting, and it might just be that there's a bit of a turnabout, and then the playing field and the e-toll decision will be a lot easier. Hopefully before then, even before the end of this year, sanity will have prevailed even in the ruling party on this matter, and they will acknowledge that the scheme has failed completely. They've got to make that decision. When I say completely, it's actually down to 20% of people are paying. 80% are not paying. The debt is now close to 8 billion rand. The Moody's ratings are being reviewed again. Everything says SANRAL You've got no choice now but to pull the plug and do a deal with Treasury, and we've got this solution for them. 9 cents on the fuel levy, by the way, back in the days when the road was being built, would have already paid for it.
When I hate to interrupt you, we do have callers on the line. Paki, hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for your patience. And what's your comment or question?
Oh, number one, I want to salute Chairman Mashaba. It was a pending, very long issue. And as an organized labor, we managed too much to say without consultation, ETOL must fall. And President Zuma, he has signed for ETOL. But I believe everything there is a time. Time has come for change. Time has come that ETOL must fall. So all the South Africans to benefit. Now it's scrutinizing us, taking our money without even even the cars. I've got a car. I was receiving the statement that I'm owing 4,000, and I never drive that car.
All right, Pira,
so
we need to give a chance to
I want to salute Chairman Mashaba.
Thank you so much for your call. We have another caller on the line. What's your comment or question? Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Sandy. How are you?
Good. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm fine, Sandy. First of all, your panelist that is sitting there that said all politicians are bananas and yellow. He must retract his words because that is, to me, it's a racist remark. Because I just want to say to Wayne also, Wayne and them, they are like bad bugs, sucking money out of people and enriching themselves and being honest, because government is using this e-tolls, these roads that are being built. It's not money that comes from it comes from loans, and government is expected to repay the loans. So some of these so-called e-toll fighters and whatever, as I said last time, if you can remember, I said Herman Mashaba is not a politician. He's a businessman. And now what he's doing in the economical hub of South Africa, I mean, let us be realistic. It's just another political game he's playing. So my input is that they must stop playing with people, because the rich must pay. When they use that road, they must pay.
All right, Charles, point taken. Thanks so much. Howard, your response to Charles saying that you retract your statement?
I'm sorry, but I can't retract my personal view. I don't trust a single politician, not one of them. It doesn't matter which political party they belong to. And as for that being racist, that's the typical argument of somebody who's got no argument. The fact is that he's talking about the rich must pay. But he fails to understand that the people that are hardest hit by e-tolls are people who live in Soweto, people who live in Soshanguve, etc., etc. Why? Because
but aren't they exempted if they use public transport?
If they use public transport, if they use minibus taxis, which kill them, yes, then they're exempted. However, if they use their own personal motor vehicles to travel from Soweto to Midrand to go to work, they are the hardest hit. You cannot say that this is an anti-rich tax and a pro-poor tax. It's the exact opposite. Why? Because of the spatial arrangement of the cities of Johannesburg, Tshwane, and every other major metropole in South Africa. The poorest of the poor stay furthest from the actual centers where they are working, and it hits them the hardest. And unfortunately for this gentleman, he fails to recognize that the people who phoned in are people who are those typical people that are living in townships who are sitting with these astronomical bills. And this has been a monumental blunder on the part of government and SANRAL. It is time to dismantle e-tolls.
All right, just the last words from you, Wayne, the caller saying that it makes business sense for the metro, primarily the mayor's office, as opposed to it being something that is prudent or good for government.
Look, I mean, there are going to be some pro-tolling people. And, you know, for him to say that they borrowed bonds and now they have to fund those bonds. Of course they borrowed bonds, but they made a mistake in borrowing those bonds. They could have done this road infrastructure upgrade through another mechanism. He's making out as if every single road upgrade and every single road in this country is told. They're not told. Roads are being built through tax money. This is social infrastructure, and it needs to be funded by taxation. The second thing is we're not here to make money out of the public. We're here to provide support to the public who rightfully are challenging this scheme, and we will go to court and we'll fight it to the end. This is not about us getting rich. ITA would love not to exist. It exists because it needs to keep government in check when they get out of hand and out of line with regards to decisions like this, like the carbon tax that is coming, like tire recycling taxes. We have a lot of issues that have to be challenged in government. So we're not here because we want to be here to get rich out of the scheme. We're here to support the public, and we will continue to do that. And if he wants to not support us, that's fine. He's entitled to his opinion.
All right,
and we will continue to be supported by the public.
All right. Your time is always valued and appreciated. Wayne Duvenage is the chairman of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse. And in his studio, we have Howard Dembowski. He's the chairman of the Justice Project for South Africa. Much appreciated. And you at home, thanks for calling.